Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to Sanhedrin daf Nun Dalid, and we're going to begin on the top of Nun Dalid Amud Aleph by Tanakh and Rava. So we have been learning the Mishnah on the previous daf. The Habola aim, a person who has relations with his mother, according to the Tanakh, if a person does this b'shogeg, you're chayav for aim, as well as Eishes Av. So you would have to bring two chatois. Rabbi Huda says in the Mishnah, Enu chayav el mishum ha'aim bolvad. There's no chayav of Eishes Av. And the Gemara was going back and discussing why not, why isn't he going to be chayav on both. So let's continue on Nun Dal Manal. Tanakh and Rabbi. So we're going to bring a support in Toras Kohanim, which is a stam sifra, which was going to be like the shita, based on the following pasuk. Ish, so only with regard to a man, prat l'katan, not a katan, because he's not, he doesn't get oinshin. Asher yishkav es eishes aviv, if he cohabits with his father's wife, mashma ben eishes aviv shehi imoy, ben eishes aviv shlo imo. This pasuk, in violation of being with your father's wife, it doesn't distinguish whether we're talking about that she's your mother. So therefore, l'chayra, you should be chayiv either way. Now, ima she'enu eishes aviv menayin. How do we know, taka, that if we're dealing with imo, which is not even eishes aviv, right? It's not your father's wife, but it's still your mother. How do we know? Talmud leimer ervas aviv gila mufne l'haka shavladin mimenu gzer shava. So on gzer shava, that it doesn't make any difference if she's your father's wife or she just happens to be your mother. So, but they were never married, let's say. So in either situation, you're still chayv. Then it says, most yumsu, that such a person who does this, it's a capital offense, and the punishment is beskil. So atem beskil enu el b'achas be'lo misas samoris b'tayra. How do we know it's taka skil, which is the most chomer of all the misas? So never come to man bum, and never oivi adaini to man bum, because we went out from oivi adaini. When it comes to the avodah zarah of oivi adaini, malhan beskila avkan beskila. So we went out from the man bum that the din is. That a person who's boils his mother, the punishment is skil. Oine shemanu azhar minayin. It's not enough to tell us the punishment; it also has to be an azhar in the Torah. Talmud lomer ervas avicha lo segal ervas avicha zu eishes avicha. This is referring to your father's wife. That's what it means when it says ervas avicha. It's referring to your father's wife. So maybe it's talking about your father. So Nemerkan ervas avicha lo segala v'nemer l'hol ervas aviv gila mal l'hol b'ishus hakasam adaber avkan b'ishus hakasam adaber. We're talking about b'ishus, that it's someone that he was married to. Says Rashi. Rashi says Reisha dekra isha sher yishkav es eishes aviv. It says beferish in the pasuk that it says a person who lies with his father's wife rather. Umashma bein eishes aviv etc. V'chayv laham yishum eishes av. V'chayv because of eishes av. Adi asa imcha. Adi asa imcha hi. The saifa, and then the pasuk imcha hi that comes umiyuta. V'ukmol reisha dekra al karchach v'eishes aviv she'enu imoy. So we're going to say it's talking about Eishes Aviv, who's not your mother over there. Okay. So, so we went out from this pasuk talk about it's Be'ishus Kos Medaber. Umashma. So that's how anyway ervas Aviv mamish, ervas avicha mamish. So never kan ervas avicha v'lo sigav never l'hon ervas Aviv gila malhon Be'ishus Kos Medaber avkan Be'ishus Kos Medaber. Second wide line. Umashma. Furthermore, the pasuk is mashma bein eishes aviv she'imo bein eishes aviv she'enu imo. Even it's not your mother. Imo she'enu eishes aviv nine. How do we know on his hara for imo, your mother, who is not your father's wife? Talmud learner erbas imcha lo segal einli elo bashar shias hakosav imo she'enu eishes aviv imo shehi eishes aviv All I know is that the Azhara, which compares a mother who is not your father's wife to your mother who is your father's wife, Einish Menayin. So how do we know the Einish? Never Khan, Ervas Avichos Segav, Never Lahol, Ervas Aviv Gila. Ma Bazhara, Asa Kasav Imo, Shenu Eishes Aviv, Ki Imo, Shehi Eishes Aviv, Ap Einish, Ba'Einish, Asa Kasav Imo, Shenu Eishes Aviv, Ki Imoi, So just like we don't make a distinction when it comes to either the Azhara or the Einish between whether this mother is your father's wife or not. So therefore, we're all covered. We have an Azhara and we also have an Einish. And then the pasuk says Im Chahi Mishum Imo Atomachayim V'Atomachayim Mishum Eishes Av, which again is the shita of the Rabbi of Rabbi Yehuda, that in the event that you're chayiv to bring a carbon because it was b'shogeg, the din is you only bring one carbon. You only bring because of imoi and not because of your father's wife. Rabbanon, who says you are chayiv to bring two, ervas avicha mamish havoy. Hoy. He says the pasuk is actually talking about ervas avicha mamish, and we can learn out rather Rabbanon ervas avicha mamish. So haim the es zachar nafka. Understand? You already have a pasuk that says there's an isser of mishkav zachar. So why do you need any other source? It's obvious, right? That we're not talking about tashish with one's own father, right? So your answer is l'chayv of shnayim. Maybe you're chayv too. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, nachri abal aviv. You have a nachri who has tashmish with his father. Chayv shtayim. He's talking to me chayv 2. Habal achi aviv. If he's boil with his father's brother, his uncle chayv shtayim. So sometimes this is what happens. So what is the chayv shtayim? So Rashi says the din of zachar, of mishkav zachar, and ervas avicha. She can be chayv more than one. Amar Rava Mistaber Milsid Rabbi Yehuda. It's logical. Be Yisrael b'shoigig of a carbon. He's talking about a situation where a person violated, and you're only chayiv one. Is you're talking about being chayiv a carbon. Because Rashi Gemandi Ika Shnei Lavin. But maybe since there's 2 Lavin Chol Chatais V'neim, Afagav the Karis Achasi. So possibly it's true that maybe you have to bring more karbanos, even though you're only obviously going to be chayiv kares once. As we darshan in the beginning of the 3rd parak in Masechtas Makos, achaisi yisera, the extra achaisos l'chal kares l'mafatim v'soch the kasabei shnei lavin v'kares achas hu adin l'chol shnei lavin v'kares achas. So we see over there that you could be chayiv being mafatim avodah zarah soch. Either these are 2 separate isurim. So b'shogeg you're chayiv 2 lavin, but obviously there's only 1 chayiv kares. Fine. So actually I read it pum fakert. So when we say that it's mustaber to say that Rabbi Yehuda be so b'shogeg of a carbon. That when Rabbi Yehuda says, really, Rabbi Yehuda says only chayiv for aim, that's only by kares. But taka maybe you chayiv 2 chatois. V'haydi kaimer nachri lishna mal yehu, which is not muchach from what our Mishnah says. Anyway, the fact that we talk about nachri is lishna mal yehu. It's a nicer language. So dinu manihu katla, betray katli katle, when we're going to kill him twice. So tanim hachi habal aviv chayiv shtayim. Person's boil's father 2. Habal achi aviv chayiv shtayim. Nikid yamri deloy Rabbi Yehuda. Some say it's not like Shittas Rabbi Yehuda. Says Rashi, deholo mashma ervas avicha mamish. He doesn't learn out ervas avicha. Diasik zer shava. Okay. Just like your father's brother, the kurva, the aviv who is related to your father, chayiv shtayim. So aviv will kol shekain. So your own father certainly should be chayiv twice. The machlokes is totally on the machlokes of mind Rav. Marsav or einshin min adin, Marsav in einshin min adin, which is shtickle pel on the beginning of Makos and Dav Hey. We know ein einshin min adin. Actually, it's a machlokes over here. So maybe just because the din is your chayav shtayim by Yachi Aviv, maybe Aviv, which is more chomer, maybe ein einshin min adin because it's so bad. We're not going to even give you an opportunity for kapara. Rabbanan azhar le'eshes aviv menolu. How do Rabbanan know azhar for eshes aviv? So nafkahu me'erves eshes of yichel segal. Rabbi Huda hu meboili l'azhar le'eshes aviv lachamisa. Is referring to there's an isser of taking your father's wife even after his death. Rabbanan hu mesevde kor nafka erves avichahi. It's always considered to be erves avicha. So even lachamisa. Rabbi Huda hu meboili mishomeshes av atam chavi mishomeshes ish. So Rabbi Yehuda learns out that pasuk to say, no, you're only chayav for Eishes of, but not for Eishes Ish. V'anon tanan, what do you mean? We learned, Habal Eishes of, chayav mishum Eishes of, mishum Eishes Ish. It already says, Beferish you are chayav mishum Eishes Ish. What do you mean, you're not chayav mishum Eishes Ish? It says, Beferish you are. Bein b'chayav bein le'acham Eishes of, v'lo pol Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't make a distinction. Rabbi, no. Polig b'braisa. Okay, you're right. He doesn't argue in the Mishnah, but he argues in the Braisa. Okay. Why isn't his mentioning of the machlokas also in the Mishnah? Okay, it's a good question. How do Rabbanan know where the source is of the punishment for someone who's boil your father's wife lachamisa? Now he learns out, as we saw Gezer Shava, as we saw that he learned out Einish from Azhar from Gezer Shava. So also here, we'll learn out the Gezer Shava. El Rabbanan, who doesn't learn out the Gezer Shava Minalu, Zarmelchahu Erbes Aviv Gila Demapikla. So he learns out from that pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda Gezer Shava Mapikle, he learns out from Gezer Shava. Inhu Einish Desis Aviv Lachamisa. And for the other is to tell us again the Einish Desis Aviv Lachamisa. Rabbanan Einish Le'imoi, your mother, She'enu Eishes Aviv, who's not your father's wife, Menol, who's some Rav Shishi, Redu Rav Hidi, Amakra, Imchahi, also Kosav Imo, She'enu Eishes Aviv, Kimo She Eishes Aviv. So as we said, we don't make a distinction whether it's Eishes Aviv or not. The din is, you're going to be chayav. So it doesn't seem, and I may have missed something here, a practical nafkamina necessarily between any of these shitas. But it's just how we get to the point of how we darshan the psukim. Okay, I mean obviously the nafkamina is, as our Mishnah said regarding Rabbi Yehuda, whether you're chayav one or two, or maybe he also argues in chayav eshasish. Okay, how about kalasai? Well, chayav namni mishum eshes benai. How about it's your son's wife? We begin talking about the daughter-in-law, then we end off with your son's wife. To tell us that this is the same thing. What does that mean? Says Rashi. Because okay. Right. The likelihood of a Dirshu question there is unlikely. I don't think it's ever happened, but you never know. Next Mishnah. Says Masnisen. Habal Zochar. We already talked about this. Person has tashmish with a man. Val behem or an animal. Va'isha ha'mavias a behema. Or for that matter, if it's a woman with an animal, the din is beskila. And we already mentioned this in the previous Mishnah. Question the Mishnah asks, a great kasha. Im adam chata behema ma chata. I understand killing the person was bechira. This animal, what did the animal do wrong to kill it? Adam takal al yada, since this person sinned through this animal, lafika chaymer kasav tesakel. We say we should just have it killed. And that's even though the animal didn't do anything wrong, but this animal represents an animal in which a person sinned to the extent of being killed. So if we kill the animal. Davar acher, shlote behema oiveres b'shuk v'yamru Zuhi sheniskil poini al yada. It's a question exactly what the nafkamin is over here. But the second shot is that if this animal starts walking around, you have a dog in the middle of the street, and oh, that was the dog. So we don't even want to start going there, people talking that way. So this is a straightforward question, and therefore this is a question 11. So let's see how he frames it here. Question 11. Okay, person sinned through it. Or again, basically uses the language of the Mishnah. Okay. Actually, this is great. I was wrong. They did ask this question. I got it completely wrong. This is an unbelievably difficult question. Omer Yehuda Habal Aviv Chayv Shtayim. Uchad Lishna. I feel this is. I feel Rabbi Yehuda. The Erbas Avicha Koya Eishes Av. Im Kain Menolan the Chayv Shtayim. How does he know that Habal Aviv is Chayv Shtayim? Whoa! This is amazing that they asked this question. So the answer is, as we just saw, TA3. Let's read it. Habal Aviv Chayv Shtayim. And also we learn Habal Al Achi Aviv Chayv Shtayim. So why? So maybe Umaisala B'Kal V'Chaymer Me'achi Aviv. Ma'achi Aviv the Korva the Aviv Hu Chayv Shtayim. Aviv Lo Kol Shekain. Okay, so that's the answer. Right here, Kal V'Chaymer Me'achi Aviv. Okay, I stand corrected. Okay, and of course TB4, which is pretty similar to a lot of these other questions, asks the same question: why do we kill the animal? Which was we already did, so I'm not going to even read my wrote. Well, so let me read what I wrote. Yesh tekala shebehema garim misal isha zeh shu oisa vera netnei habusha im habehema hoylech b'shuk shebenei adam oimrim shezeh behema shu oisa vera ima. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So it says Zachar ben Olam. How do we know the din of Mishkav Zachar? The Tan Rabbanon. Ish, the person is probably a katan, not a katan. Rashi Yishkav as Zachar, being gadol being katan. Interesting. So if you're the active participant in Mishkav Zachar, even if the person that you violated was a katan, which of course nowadays has all other major problems, pedophilia and even worse than that, rape, you're chayiv. But if the katan was the one who was the one who did the action, then they would not be chayiv. Mishkav isha magaducha kasev sheshnei mishkavos beisha. So mishkav isha is there's shtei mishkavos beisha. So which means, so let's look at Rashi, that they're the same. Whether we're talking about kedarka or shul kedarka, bia with a woman, shul kedarka, is considered to be a bia. So therefore, it's obviously it's the same thing with a man, which is the only form of mishkav zachar possible. So we can go back and forth. To tell you on a zachar you're chayiv, even though it's shul kedarka. V'nim salamed lo mishkav zachar lo itzrach kra the pshita one they call mishkav zachar shul kedarka hu, says Rashi. Ela hai mishkav elashminan asa dahabal isha. If you had bia with a woman, ben kedarka min shul kedarka chayiv. The chiddush is that just like by a man, obviously, even though it's the efsher, the tashmish is shul kedarka, and it's considered to be a tashmish to be chayiv. So too with a woman. Let's say an isha or whatever it is. So it's the same thing, even shul kedarka. Most yom subaskil. So after I'm baskil, I know el bachs mekol miso samos batayra. So Nemer Khan the man bum and Nemer Boivi Adina the man bum. Malam Maskila Afkan Maskila. So as we say, we learn everything. We always learn out for the most part from Oivi Adini, the punishment of skila. It's an easy way to always remember. It's Oivi Adini. That's the key proof. Nun down with base. Oine Shamanu. So that's the punishment. Azhar Menayin. How do we say an Azhara? Talmud Loimer Vezachel Tishka Mishkavi Yisha Tueva. It's an abomination. Umanu Azhara L'Shoichev. So it's an Azhara to L'Shoichev. Azhar L'Nishkav Menayin. So there's the Shoichev and the Nishkav. So how do we know there's also an Isser? It's not just an action, but also the recipient, which is referring to a Zaina, who is the receiver. So he learns out from that pasuk this link, as is also an abomination. Rabbi Kiva Oimer Enu Tzarech. You don't even need this. Because Ari Oimer Vezachel Tishkav. So, based on these words, you can say there's no difference whether we're referring to the man or the woman, because obviously, if it's Mishkeve Isha, right? So Karibe Lo Tishkav. So it says Beferish, it's considered Mishkeve Isha, a woman, and therefore there's an Isser there too. So Behema Manolan. How do we know Taka? So we know clearly there's an Isser Skila by Mishkav Zachar. That's clear. How about by Behema? The Tan Rabbanan. Ish Prat Lakatan. Asher Yitain Shechiv Toibe Behema Ben Gedoyla Ben Katana. It doesn't matter if the animal's big or small, you're still chayiv. Mois Yumos Beskila. That's why I'm Beskilino Ella Biachs Mechol Misos and Mois Batayra. Never can Teherogu Venemer Laholan. And here, this is where it's a little bit of a curveball. Here, we're not talking about Oviadoni, but rather from a Masis. Ki Harag Tihargenu. By a Masis. And over there, Rashi says, Uskalto Ba'avanim. When it comes to the Masis, the person who persuades others to be Oived Avodah Zarah, they get skila. Clearly, it says on the pasuk. Tumalham beskila, avkan beskila. Tuman oinish l'shoichev, oinish l'nishka menol. And again, what if? So one is the person who is active. How about the person who is passive? If he's passive with an animal, the animal is the active participant. Menolan. Talmud loimer kol shoichev im behema mos yumos. Anyone. So im enu l'shoichev to inu l'nishkav. So we already know, again, there's a punishment whether you're the active or the passive party. I'm not sure if that's the right language, but we understand. As harmonized. So any animal with regard to shchiva, it impurifies. So how do we know by Nishkav, by Anashara? So it's a similar limud. Okay. Habal Zachar. Let's continue. Habal Zachar. Behavior of Zachar. So, so what happened? A person was boil a zachar. He was the active participant. And then the opposite took place. So because you did an action of Mishkav Zachar as the active participant and also as the receiver, you're chayav shtayim. Chadam lo tishka v'chadam lo yeh kadosh. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Let me get these words. Chayav shtayim. Chadam lo tishka v'chadam lo yeh kadosh. Now with Rabbi Akiva, enu chayav el achas. Lo tishkav chadahi. So he only has one pasuk. So maybe according to Rabbi Akiva, you only chayav one. Okay. So it is a machlokas, you're the chayav one or two. According to Rabbi Akiva, based on do you have like an extra pasuk or an extra limud. Habal behema behavi behema love. So what's the din? Again, we're talking about now with bestiality. Because you have two different psukim. However, with Rabbi Kiva, it's like a drasha with the same words, basically, so you can only be chayv one. Okay, so that's a practical nafkamina. Even though it's true you have a couple of psukim over here, you're still only chayv one. When it says lo yekadesh, gavri ksiv, it's only with a man, not an animal. It's only, that pasuk is only referring to a man, not with an animal. So then if that's true, then how do we know that you're chayiv at all? There's no ashar anymore. So nafkali mikol shaychav imahim amos yumos. Imenu inu shaychav didn't nishkav. So v'akar rachmanu nishkav b'loshen shaychav ma shaychav oynish v'hizer. Av nishkav oynish v'hizer. So over there, the active party is the one is chayiv because we have an oynish and an ashar. So too over here. Hanir v'lo zachar v'hanir v'lo behema. So again, so far the question is: are you chayav one or two if you are active and passive with regard mishka zachar regarding an animal? Now, what if you do both? Hanir v'lo zachar v'hanir v'lo behema. So I'm Rabbi Avo l'div Rabbi Kiva chayav shtayim because they're two psukim. Chad melo tishka v'chad melo titin shchavtaka. Div Rabbi Shmuel eno chayav melo achas id v'idu lo yekadeshu. They both learn out from the same pasuk, so therefore you'd actually only be chayav. Interestingly, according to him, only one. The ksiv kol shaychiv imahim amos yumos inu l'shaychiv tinu inu l'nishkav. V'af goin l'nishkav b'loshen shaychiv ma shaychiv onish v'hizer v'af nishkav onish v'hizer. So no, it's not true. Yitaka would be chayav too. Avol but habal zachar v'hevi zachar olav. In that situation, as we saw before, Habal behema v'hevi behema olav. So bein Rabavoy, bein Labai, bein Rabbi Shmuel chayiv shalosh. So basically, all four things took place. Two actions per one. Two actions with an zachar and two with a behema. Rabbi Shmuel says you chayiv three. Rabbi Kiva chayiv shtayim. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan. Zachar loy asu boy katan kegadol. When it comes to zachar, we don't consider a katan like a gadol, says Rashi. But nishkav mayri, regarding to the one who's the nishkav, he's not going to be chayiv if he's the recipient, if he's a katan. Behema asu katana kegadola. However, when it comes to an animal, a small animal, we do. So 1 second. Milo asu boy katan kegadol. So Marav. Lo asu bias pachas meben teisha shanim keben teisha shanim. Between less than 9 and 9 years old. So that's the distinction, because typically we say 9 years old is when the bia of a katan has the din of a bia. That's what it's referring to. Okay, that's Shitas Rav. Now let's keep going. Shmuel Aimer lo asu bias pachas meben shol shanim kibin shol shanim. So one says 9 and one says 3. So b'maikimif Rav Savar, who says 9, called the Isa b'shaychav Isa b'nishkav, called the Leisa shaychav Leisa b'nishkav. Ushmol Savar mishkavei isha ksiv. So it says mishkavei isha. We know, but when it comes to an isha, the din is by 3 years old. The cutoff is 3. So therefore, even though we're talking about a katan, it's also 3. Fine. Tani Gvasid Rav. Zachar ben teisha shanim v'yoyim echad. If you have a zachar, which is again 9 years old, and he says 9, Nun Ham and Aleph. Habal behema ben kedarka min shel kedarka va'isha hamavias behema leha ben kedarka min shel kedarka chayev. So we're going to stop there. But again, we see this din that's totally on the age of 9. So look at question 12. Ben kamiye nishkav hazachar l'chayev zachar hashaychvay. How old is the nishkav, the one who's passive, who's a zachar? Will you be chayev the zachar hashaychvay, the one who lied with him? So Again, this is shtickle unbelievable, but this is Torah. So Rav says ben teshanim and Shmuel says ben shalosh, and this is probably not a question that we don't ask. Let's see. Let's see if there's another question. Adkan.